Hey everyone, what's up? My name is Ryan, aka Lethal Llama. 12 minutes of new gameplay of 1930s inspired boss rush style game Cuphead was just released, and with it comes a lot of new information, including new bosses, the game's shop, a look at your inventory, and more. My last video on Cuphead was an Everything You Know So Far video, where I went over just that, so I advise checking out that video first if you're new to Cuphead. I linked that video in the description. In this video, I'll be going frame by frame to uncover any new information about the game. So let's get started. The video opens with footage of a new boss on a level called Floral Fury. Before I discuss the killer flower, there have been some pretty big changes in the HUD. Both the health and super meter for Cuphead and Mugman have been redesigned. Instead of the previous eyes and nose, a simple number shows how many hits you have left. To clarify, if you have 1 HP and you get hit, you die. In addition, the super meter has changed from a mouth to cards. You can hold up to 5, and they continually charge as long as you're damaging your enemy, as you can see here. These redesigns are both welcome changes in my book, as it's easier to tell what you have at a glance, extremely important in such a difficult and focus-demanding game. It may seem fairly obvious, but each boss has their own intro animation to the fight, as well as Cuphead and Mugman. And I don't think I've mentioned it in my last video, but there is no player collision. Walking into your teammate will not make them move. Both of you can occupy the same space, useful when dodging certain attacks. Now about that killer flower. It has a few attacks, some of which are pretty tricky. The first is when he cups his leaf hands together and spawns either a winged creature or 4 beets. I think they're beets, maybe turnips? The winged creature flies across the screen, then flies back to the lower half of the screen. The trajectory of the turnips are based on where you or your partner are at the moment they launch. Its next attack is a lunge. His body fills up either the upper or lower half of the area. Where its head moves when it charges up indicates where it will attack. It also has a seed Gatling gun, propelling different colored seeds into the air, which then float to the ground and plant. The color of the seeds reflects what spawns from it. Blue seeds hatch a vine that climbs up and releases a homing, biting leaf thing. It can be destroyed by shooting it a few times. Purple seeds hatch stationary ground chompers, which can also be destroyed by your weapon. Note that Cuphead and Mugman can crouch and shoot, making it fairly easy to take these out. Pink seeds sprout a vine that releases an airborne flower that fires pink objects at you. We know from before that these can be parried, possibly for supercharge. These can also be destroyed by fire. It's unclear whether or not the initial seed floating down can be parried, as it is a similar pink color. It's also clear that the vines spawned from the seeds are not dangerous. As an aside, I thought at first that the propellers underneath the platforms might hurt you, but that was disproven, and the platforms can be jumped down through. Also, it appears that the flower's hitbox is solely its head. You can see here that a shot just below the head does no damage. Up next, we see what happens when a teammate dies in battle. Their ghost floats towards the sky, and they have a pink heart. If parried by their partner, they are brought back to life with 1 HP. If they aren't saved in time, there's no bringing them back. Because of this mechanic, in co-op, it'd be much better to die on the bottom of the screen than the top, giving your teammate more time to rescue you. You also have a few frames of blinking invincibility after taking damage, giving you a chance to reposition. We then see something interesting when both players die. We get a cheesy taunt line from the boss, and look at what appears to be markers throughout the match that may indicate a change or phase in battle. You can see that Mugman almost made it to the third, while Cuphead, who died first, almost made it to the second. My best guess is that players cross these markers when they deal enough damage to the boss. Passing these points might mean that the boss starts using a new attack. I think this is what the first marker indicates. When the fight begins, the flower only uses the lunge and leaf hand attacks, and we see this twice. Receiving enough damage may have prompted it to begin using the Gatling gun move, but this is just speculation. We also get confirmation in this video that each boss, or most bosses, will have multiple forms or phases. When a significant amount of damage is dealt to the flower, a new animation gives way to his new, deadlier form. I believe this is what the third marker indicates, although I'm not quite sure what the second one means. Its new attack has it spreading its vines underground, ending up beneath the 3 floating platforms. The spikes on the vines make the floor of the arena unplayable. The vines will randomly envelop an entire platform, rendering it momentarily deadly. At the same time, the flower will spout attacks that look like dandelions. These cannot be destroyed, only dodged. The exception being the pink ones that he spits out every so often, which can be parried, as we see here. Then Mugman uses his super, using up all 5 cards to unleash a massive beam from his head, the same super we saw a while back. It should also be noted that the super cards spin around quickly when you are at max capacity, a handy way to know when to unleash the beast. Unfortunately, we don't see this boss being defeated, but I think it's safe to assume that this was his final form. as Mugman clearly made it past the last marker, almost to the end. Up next, we get our first look at the game's shop, with the amazing name of Pork Rind's One Stop Shop. Run by a pig, naturally, this particular shop offers 5 different items for varying amounts of money. These items have different classifications as well, either charms or extra specials, which I'll explain soon. For charms, there's Health Buddy, Smoke Dash, and Coffee. Health Buddy allows you to take an extra hit, starting the battle with 4 HP instead of 3. Smoke Dash makes you invincible during your dash, also turning you invisible for its duration. Coffee makes your meter charge constantly, even while not damaging an enemy. Extra Special Bullet Shield makes your shots home slightly towards the enemy you're shooting. Finally, Extra Special Munition changes your normal shots into a shotgun-style weapon. However, like shotguns, the range is limited, great for bosses that are up close and personal. The items that cost the most, 4 coins, are Health Buddy, Smoke Dash, and Coffee, so I assume that these are considered the most valuable. We find out from one of the game makers that money is earned through completing platforming levels, that is, levels without bosses, which we haven't seen yet. Money is also used to unlock new bosses to fight. This raises 2 questions. First, how much money do you get for completing a platforming level, and does it depend on how well you do? For example, would you get more money for beating a level while taking no hits, or perhaps beating it very quickly? Second, can these levels be completed multiple times for an endless amount of money? Next up, we see the player's inventory for the first time. Each player has 4 slots to equip an item or move: Shot A, Shot B, Super, and Charm. When player 1 enters the Shot B section, we see that there are a total of 8 spaces, implying that there are 8 different kinds of shots you can equip. The one that is currently equipped is the Pea Shooter, which is what we've seen most often in gameplay. It shoots single bullets at a time in rapid succession, which travel all the way across the screen. It also says Extra Special Energy Ball. I believe this is referring to the attacks that use up your meter if you are not at full meter. I will now refer to these attacks as Extra Specials. We see this once in a previous gameplay trailer, and we'll see it once again in the next boss battle. Still focusing on player 1 for now, he switches to the shot called Homing, which he bought at the shop. The extra special is Bullet Shield. Unfortunately, we don't see this being used at all, as the person playing this character seems to forget to switch to it in the heat of battle. Next, we see that both the Super slot and the Charm slot also have 8 available slots. Assuming Shot A is the same, there would be 8 different items possible to equip, one at a time, for each category. Next, we get a look at the default Super description, which says, "Use your head and unleash all of your power upon thine foes," which sounds awfully familiar. This is the super that was used in battle against the Killer Flower. This really powerful attack can only be used when you have all 5 cards in your meter filled. Otherwise, you use just 1 card and activate your extra special. Finally, for player 1, he equips Health Buddy to give him an extra life. Looking now at player 2, he equips Spread Shot to Shot B, then chooses Smoke Dash instead of Coffee to equip for his charm. Now off to the next boss fight, called Ruse of an Ooze, where we can see some of these new items in effect. As the players walk up to the level, we see an option of easy versus normal mode. One of the developers confirms that playing on easy will make the boss fights have less phases, thus being easier to complete. With the tip of his blue hat, the fight begins. We already see the effect of Health Buddy, as player 1 has 4 HP instead of 3. The boss's first attack is simply jumping around. Any contact with the blob will damage you. We see player 2 using Smoke Dash to dodge the blob, briefly turning invincible and dashing out of harm's way. Looking closely, it also seems that the blob will occasionally and randomly jump at different heights, making it tricky to always know where it will land. Every so often the blob will pause, wind up, and lunge forward. Next, player 1 uses his extra special for the Pea Shooter. Unfortunately, he misses, and 1 super card is gone. Then player 2 switches to the Spread Shot, the shotgun-like weapon bought at the shop. Notice how the indication for swapping weapons is different than it was before. It used to appear on the side of your screen, where now it appears above your health. Just like your primary fire, there seems to be infinite ammo for your secondary fire. It's just a matter of figuring out which one is best for the given situation. Next, player 2 uses his extra special, sending out an attack in all 8 directions. The reason it looks so different is because player 2 has the Spread Shot equipped, thus altering what his extra special does. Once enough damage has been done, we see the boss's second form, an angrier, larger Bouncy Blob. His main attacks are mostly the same though. He still bounces at varying heights, trying to flatten you. Instead of the lunge from his first phase, he will punch. This attack can be ducked under, as we see here. The final form of this boss is a tombstone with 1 attack. He stays in the background, pacing back and forth. It occasionally pauses to smash down to the foreground. Finally, he's defeated. The last boss fight of this video is a shoot-'em-up plane battle called Threatening Zeppelin. Cuphead and Bugman fly in this battle and are able to move in every direction fluidly. The boss is a half-lady, half-Zeppelin, and this fight has some interesting attacks. The first are purple mini-blimps that fly from the right of the screen and then shoot one bullet at a player. They can be destroyed before they shoot, however, and they have the chance to fire pink projectiles which can be parried. The next attack comes from the boss herself. The physical form of her laughter comes from her mouth and travels horizontally across the screen. Then we see what an extra special looks like during a flying battle, a barrage of missiles unleashed in almost 180 degrees in front of you. It seems that you wouldn't be able to change your bullet type in this kind of fight, so this may be the only extra special you get. Unfortunately, we do not get to see someone using a super, which I'd be very interested in seeing. The next phase for the Zeppelin has her blowing across the screen and leaving a trail of stars in her wake. At first, I thought these stars were harmful. I mean, they look dangerous. It even seems like player 2 dashes through them to avoid taking damage. But their second attempt at the fight shows that the stars are in fact harmless, as we see him ride right through them with no damage. She comes back across the screen and uses the star's formation to turn into a cloud bull, whose only attack is to occasionally but quickly rush towards you. When she turns back into her old self, we see our first green blimp. Instead of shooting one bullet like the purple one, it shoots a spread of 4 bullets. We see another new attack when the Zeppelin conjures up a tornado and pushes it towards the players. Although not surprising, we see that it is indeed possible to also revive a friend during a plane battle by parrying. The next star formation turns the boss into a Zeus-like being, who shoots arrows and stars. The arrows shoot straight. The stars, however, home towards the players and circle around until they are destroyed. Back in her old form again, the purple Zeppelins begin attacking in 2s and 3s, making them much more of a threat. And then, in an absolutely beautiful animation, the boss transforms into her final phase, a giant, angry, menacing moon. The background also swaps into nighttime. Although the boss doesn't do much besides laugh at you, it's still plenty difficult, especially considering that her new form takes up the entire right half of the screen, giving you much less breathing room. The fight also becomes more bullet hellish, with lots of projectiles and attacks to avoid. Invincible stars float up and down across the screen, and UFOs line the top of the screen, using beams of light to attack. I almost missed this detail, but there are 2 different kinds of UFOs which attack differently. The red UFOs will always attack at the absolute left side of the screen, while the gold UFOs will always attack around halfway between the boss and the edge of the screen. This slight variation is enough to trip some players up. Once again, we don't see this boss being defeated, but it's safe to say this is its final form. And a few more details to close this out. When walking around the world map, we're able to see 2 more levels that were not played in this demo. The first looks like a courthouse of sorts, but when looking through old footage, I couldn't find any levels that resembled it. The second is a level called Botanic Panic, which looks like where you fight the carrot and potato bosses seen previously. And with the wildly varied locations we've seen prior, like a beehive, a casino, and a haunted forest, among others, this can't even be close to the whole map of the game. Perhaps there are different worlds or areas like we see in games like Mario, each with a different theme. A few different areas would also allow there to be a shop in each one. There has to be multiple shops. After all, where else would you buy the items to fill up your inventory? Therefore, it seems plausible that there may be different sections or areas. And that is all I have for you today. Thank you for watching. If you couldn't tell, I am very excited for this game, and I'll be sure to do more frame-by-frame breakdowns as more trailers and gameplay are released. If there's anything I missed, or if you have any theories, let me know in the comments down below. Once again, my name is Ryan, aka Lethal Llama, and I'll see you next time.